right, you are all set.
Thank you, Kaylee. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bill Pierce. I am the chairman of the Town Office Feasibility Committee. I'm going to read a few opening items and then we'll get the meeting started. This open meeting of the Town Office Feasibility Study Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on March 29th, 2023. All members of the Town Office Feasibility Study Committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. This act allows the Town Office Feasibility Study Committee to meet entirely remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed in the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. Just get a roll call of the members. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Judy Boyle.
Present.
Aaron Hutchins.
Here.
Kristen Wickstead.
Here.
Ashley Davies.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Let's see, Diane Wackel.
Present.
Sean Thompson.
Here.
Scott Charpentier.
Present.
Tim, I'm not going to get your last name right yet, Tim. Is it
Mac
McInerney?
Like two names, Mac and Ernie.
Mac Ernie. There we go. I'll get that at one of these days. Tim McInerney.
Yeah, Mac and Ernie. Just
Mac and Ernie.
Make the D silent, you're all set.
And then I'm just going to say Linda just joined us. So Linda, if you can just make sure that we can hear you, please.
Here.
Awesome. Just going to go over the ground rules real quick. The chair will invite each speaker or applicant on the agenda by name to make a presentation and speak to their application. Participants will provide their full name and hold until their name is called. Each speaker will be asked to mute their phone or computer when not speaking and speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. Those responding will be asked to wait until the floor is yielded to them by the chair. Speakers who wish to respond to the comments of others do so through the chair, taking care to identify themselves. For public comment, by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the chair. Please note that part of your phone number will be visible to those viewing the meeting. By Zoom, click Raise Hand on the bottom of your screen and wait to be recognized by the chair. The chair will ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. Once the chair has a list of all public commenters, the chair will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. With that being said, first item on the agenda is the acceptance of the January 10th meeting minutes. Did everyone have a chance to look those over? Are there any questions or items that we need to amend? If not, is there anyone who'd like to make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from January 10th, 2023?
I motion to accept the January 10th meeting minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made and seconded. Roll call vote. Judy?
Aye.
Aaron?
I'll abstain. I wrote them.
Kristen?
Aye.
Ashley?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. That takes care of that item. So next on the agenda, we're going to have ICON come in and do a presentation. They are already here. Welcome. I guess, Anna, you are going to be the one doing the presentation. So let me get you. Let's see.
It seems I already have access.
Okay.
1 second.
Yep. I can see
Okay.
your presentation.
Fantastic. So I want to thank you all for inviting us. We're happy to be here to update you with where things stand on the town hall feasibility study. We are, Anna, can you go to the next slide? We are going to talk big picture at the very beginning. We will talk also about building programming and things that we've used with regards to creating guidelines for sizing things. We're going to look at the draft program where it stands. We are going to talk about the 4 sites and a few initial impressions. We're starting to jump into sort of test fitting and seeing what may work. And we're going to talk about schedule, and then we will open it up at the end. However, I will say that if you have a question, please feel free to interrupt me or interrupt Anna. We're happy to take the questions as they happen. We don't view this as a presenting to, we view it as a discussion. So, so with that said, Anna, can you move forward here? So this overall big picture is very much a discussion about what the architecture of democracy is and what it is for the town of Northborough. We as architects think that the architecture of democracy needs to support transparency, it needs to support equality and representative government. And then further at the town level, and New England is very town-centric with the strengths of where local government strengths lie. It needs to support the functions and services of the town of Northborough. We also think that a town hall should have a civic presence, and it should provide a source of pride for the town. But we also know that it should be flexible, and as services change, that the building needs to be able to change as well. And I think the biggest point that I can make as we're going forward with this study is that a future town hall for Northborough needs to be well thought out, well built, and well loved so that it is something that lasts for 50 or 75 years, because the opportunities that exist to make these decisions and changes and to do something of this scale don't come along that often. And so with that, I'm going to ask the committee your input. What is your vision for a town hall for the next 50 years?
I can probably start that, something that is going to be as future-proof as possible, right? We want to be able, as you mentioned, we want to be able to do this once for the next 50 years and not have to regret any decisions that we make, which I know is tough now because nobody knows the future, but to give us the flexibility to be able to create this icon of in the town.
All right, I agree with all that. It's good stuff. Anybody else?
I would add, right now, I don't think, there is the gym at the current town offices that's used for certain community activities, but there's not really a good gathering place there, and it's even tight for current boards and committees. So it'd be great if it also, allowed for community events and things like that, a gathering place for the residents.
I was
Okay.
also thinking, if you said 50 years, but I mean, ideally, you said 50 to 75, like it would be really nice if it could grow with the changing times, right? So if we have certain aspects of the building now, are there certain ways? I know you can't see the future, but are there certain more sustainable maybe elements that we could leave off at the beginning to save on costs, but definitely it wouldn't be rocket science to add them in later? And that's just one thing I'm thinking of, sustainability, but I'm sure there are other aspects of a building that could grow with time, and hopefully it doesn't need to be rebuilt again too soon. Even 50 years from now, it'd be nice to have it go longer.
Agreed. Agreed.
And I think too, in terms of architecture, sort of highlighted in the town master plan, this sort of New England feel, whatever that is. But I think most, first and foremost, trying to have an architecture that hints to the past and isn't so current that it's going to look outdated before 50 years is up. I know that's hard to figure out, but something classic that can, that's just the exterior, but even the interior. So
That's
Mhm.
a really good point.
I think just basically a place where staff can work efficiently and effectively, have adequate space for the type of work they need, and also any potential for growth and workspace. And I don't know, with computers and automation and that kind of thing, maybe the space is shrinking in the future. I'm not really sure, even the size of equipment. But with all of that in mind, so that those who work there can work effectively. And also a facility that's very accessible to the members of the community. So it's easy to get in and out. It's easy to make their way around in the building, to know where to go to get their needs met.
That's yes. And I'm glad that you touched on accessibility. We have in the past, with the city of Cambridge, we've worked with the the Institute for Human-Centered Design. And that their goal is to have buildings that function for the widest number of users. And that is something that we view as a sustainability feature because, as you're pointing out, Linda, it is something that will, as it supports the widest number of users, it will support a building that lasts longer as well. So.
Can I jump in here? Just a point of order, Mark. I'm curious, I assume that you've communicated with town staff, them what they wanted to see in the building, correct? And that's part of
Yes.
what,
And
part
that'll be part of our update tonight.
I mean, personally, from my perspective, I think I'd rather that we get the feedback that you received before adding any input from the committee. I mean, certain committee members have already input, and that's fine, but I'd really like to know where we are in terms of information that you've received and where we're going.
Okay. Very well.
I just want to make one comment that Dario has joined. Dario, can you just unmute so we can make sure that we can hear you?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Please proceed.
All right. So I think we can move to the next slide and talk about the existing town hall. And a lot of the things that were raised are things that are struggling to be found in the existing town hall. We are aware it was a former high school and is an adaptive reuse, but one of the challenges, one of the major challenges is wayfinding and service. And one of the things that came up throughout all of our interviews were everybody wants to provide the best customer service for all of the forward-looking, for all the public-facing departments. There is a strong ethos and ethic of providing the best service for the town, for the citizenry. And one of the challenges is, A, you can't typically find where you need to go, and then B, everybody's offices are hidden behind doors, and it's hard to know further where to go. Anna, could you go to the next slide? This is on the left is the lower level with rec, and then this is the corridor at one of the upper levels. And I think the other thing to note of these images is these were taken in the middle of the day, and there's no, you wouldn't know that there are people in this building. It's very private in a way that we were not certain it should be. And then the other thing that we've heard a lot about is the orange carpet, and the challenges of just the degradation of the existing finished materials and how they're beyond their useful life. Next slide, Anna. And then this is some of the staff space, and I want to say that we've worked on multiple civic buildings, and we've interviewed a ton of people. You all have one of the most dedicated staffs that we've met and interacted with. Everybody seems to have skin in the game and want to make this a better place. And they're very proud of it, and they want it to be something that everybody else in the town is proud of. On the left, we have the GIS, MIS, IT, and on the right, we have the clerk. And you can see the congestion within the spaces. The IT department needs more space to allow for servicing of tech. They need to have their own IT room so that they don't have an air conditioner going at full blast within their suite. And then the clerk, there are some good things. Everybody commented on the size of the windows and how the windows are really important to them. But the clerk has storage needs, and the safe is wide open or out in the open. So that there are some challenges there as well. But again, you can see the ceiling in the clerk that these things are at the end of their useful life, if not beyond. And materials are beyond their useful life. So, Anna, can you go to the next slide? In these upcoming slides, we're going to talk about these building programming. We're going to talk about, you're going to see a lot of numbers with square feet, net square footage, and gross. And so the big difference here is that net square footage is the space that you measure when you have a measuring tape. It is the face of a wall to another face of a wall. And when you take the gross, you end up including the wall, and you include shafts, and you include stairs, and you include these other things, circulation space, as part of the overall building. And when we talk about gross square footage, we're talking about all the way to the outside of the building. So the outside face of the wall inward includes your gross square footage. Next slide, Anna.
Yes.
Go for it.
So now we'll be moving on to where we're at with the work. So just a brief introduction on the feasibility study. We are working on 3 phases. The first one being the building programming study, which is what we'll be presenting tonight, which is where we sit down with the individual departments and we ask them what their space needs are, and we collect that information to create a tabular program. The second step to this is taking that finalized program and test fitting it into the 4 building and sites. And then from there, we move on to the final phase of the study, which is choosing a preferred option and polishing it to send it over to the cost estimates. And this last part is what we call the schematic design phase. So in terms of the building programming and how our process works, we thought we'd explain this a little bit. So when we sit down and we have those conversations with the departments, we start off with setting a strong foundation by asking what the space needs are. And that way we are ensuring that everyone is getting their space needs met along with their well-being, and then moving on to the more aspirational wants and the more aspirational wants. And then from there, once that strong foundation is set, we start asking about how the spaces can be shared and how the community can come together in the spaces. And in terms of the building programming process, again, we start off with a programming overview meeting, which in the case of the study, we know that we're moving pretty fast. And so ideally, we would have had a meeting where everyone is gathered in one place and we present this information so that everyone hears the same information. The second step is where we were about 2 weeks ago, where we sat down with the department heads and we collected all of the information to set it into a tabular data chart, which will show you a preview of what that looks like in the next slide. And the third and final step of the programming process is reviewing it and setting it for approval so we can move forward to the second step or the second phase of the study. And so what you see here is an example of what the draft program is looking like right now. And so again, those conversations that we have with the department heads and the staff, we are collecting all of this information and we are organizing it by department, and also organizing it by the type of spaces, the size of the space that they need, along with the types of spaces that they need.
We're also, throughout this process, we're putting in things like adjacencies. We're learning what equipment and unique equipment each town department may have, and other unique needs, and getting that, whether it be, we'll get it into the numbers, but we'll also know why and how it got to be that way.
So moving on to what this draft program is looking like, we're zooming into that chart. And as you can see, we've separated it by department and the net square footage, the subtotal net square footage for each department. So for example, here we have the assessor, the town administrator, and the Board of Health, all of which 3, and which also mostly applies for almost all departments. They will be needing public-facing service counter. Moving on to the next departments, some things to point out, for example, that we heard during our conversations are that the food pantry may be back in the town hall offices. And so that brings us to a high number for the net square footage for the Family and Youth Services Department.
Just to clarify on it, the net square footage is what's projected and not at current. Is that correct?
That is, yeah, that's what we believe is needed
Mhm.
in our professional opinion and experience for each department to succeed.
Thank you.
The next series of departments, for example, we have planning and conservation. One of the things that came up throughout our conversations as well, not just with planning, was having adequate meeting spaces. So for example, we heard from planning that they would like to have a series of conference rooms or meeting spaces adjacent to their offices to accommodate their meeting needs.
Question, if I can, Mr. Chair. The DPW's current office is off-site, right, Mr. Charpentier?
No, Public Works administrative offices are at the town hall. We'll be getting into that possibly a little later in this presentation, I'm guessing, Mark, about maybe accommodating other departments in other locations, both due to space needs as well as operational efficiency. But no, we are currently at the town hall.
All right, thanks.
And then the last of the series of departments that we have here, one of the new ones that would be placed in the new town hall offices, for example, is the cable access television department. Something else to point out here is the rec department, as you can see, would be the one with the highest net square footage. This is due to their needs for programming spaces, as well as carrying over the gymnasium. And then lastly, the support spaces that you see here, this includes anything from staff dedicated spaces like bathrooms, as well as break rooms. It also includes maintenance space, as well as the conference room / meeting rooms that I previously talked about. And it also includes the select board meeting room.
One more question on it, just to clarify, recreation says it doesn't want a service counter?
The leadership there was very clear with that they are not in their office a ton, and so there really didn't appear to be a need for a service counter.
Thank you.
So we have 3 different draft program totals. And this is what Scott was referencing previously. We have the full breakout, or not the full breakout, the full total with all the departments plus cable. Then we're going to talk about the taking out the rec department only, and then taking out the rec department and the DPW department and putting the DPW department in the highway building, the administrative offices. So by totaling up everything, we have about 23,800 square feet. The net to gross multiplier that we're currently using brings, again, that takes care of air conditioning shafts. It takes care of elevators, circulation, structure, things that you don't see. We're currently carrying that at 35%, and that brings an additional 8,300 square feet. For this group of departments, we are proposing a 2,500 square foot storage. And when we refer to basement or offsite, so this is something that we deal with a lot in our town hall projects, and that is that we have files that are needed that are maybe from the last 2 to 3 years, and those need to be accessed often, and those need to be in close proximity to the staff. And then we have things that are offsite or in a basement that are things that are maybe referenced once a month or once every 6 months. And that type of storage is something that is not generally accessible and not near the workers. And also in general, that space can be is much more tight in terms of circulation. And so it's a smaller net to gross multiplier. So with those things together, the total square footage would be 35,000 square feet. And that is everybody, cable access, rec, etc., in one building. So if we, Anna, can you go to the next? So this is the same by taking out the recreation department. There's a significant drop of about 6,500 or 7,000 square feet. And you can, and we reduce the size of the storage because there is one difference here, and that is the storage for rec is actually quite large, but it is seasonal. And so they have a ton of need. And so some of that is coming out as well in this group of square footages. And this brings it down to 24,600. And then the last one, the last of these programs, we have by taking out DPW and recreation, we come down to 23,000 square feet, and we further reduce these storage needs for from these departments. And so we are looking right now at where these other departments can go. DPW offices should be with the rest of the highway department. And recreation is a unique situation where they are well loved and well used, but it's an odd situation, or it's not typical to have a recreation department with a town hall. So that we're currently studying one of the sites, the fire site, to see if that can work better there. So at this point, I'm just going to go through some of the programming guidelines that we use and how some of the general sizes of things. So this is a typical 200 square foot office, and this is using some guidelines. This is, I don't want to say that this is definitive. This is just showing what may exist at the director level. There's an L-shaped desk. There is some form of storage. There is a meeting space for 4. And the other thing that's important to note here is the circle that you see with the dashed line is for somebody that's differently able to get in and out of a space, and that's part of something we consider as well.
Sorry, Mark, I think Linda has a question. She has her hand up.
Sure.
Oh,
Go ahead, Linda.
actually, I just wanted to confirm. It sounds like you're saying that your proposal will include accommodations for rec and DPW, and they may or may not be off-site of the town hall, but in any case, it would include recommendations for those departments. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. The next layer down is leadership roles, not at the director level. These are people that need acoustical separation. They may have a few meetings, and therefore there's a desk with the peninsula. And again, this is a typical office for that level of worker. Anna, can you go to the next slide? The administrative spaces, we typically carry about 60 square feet, and they have associated storage with them, and then some type of circulation adjacent. And then we have the service desks, and those are, what we see is the circulation on the service side, on the staff side, tends to be too narrow. There's always some type of storage behind, but we see a need to provide a 6-foot space behind there so that people can pass while somebody's servicing a citizen. And then it's also important to note that we typically provide a service area for differently abled folks right built into a service desk. And then last but not least, if you go, we have the typical conference room, and this is seating for 8 to 10. There's some type of shared screen or projector, and there could be a 4x10 table or 4 2-foot by 5-foot tables on casters that can be rolled around, and that provides a flexible base, more flexible use of the space. So those are some of the guidelines that we use for sizing. And then last but not least, I think, are just our general impressions of our first pass at the 4 sites. So the existing town hall, it has enough square footage for the program. And we heard from just about everybody that the size of the space that they have is sufficient. It's the quality of the space that is something that leaves that needs change. I've already talked about it is kind of odd to have a recreation department within a town hall, and looking at how that could be facilitated. For Old Town Hall at West Main, it has a great civic presence. It has a gravitas to it. It has the potential opportunity to enliven Northborough Center during the day. One of the challenges that our initial walkthrough is that it's a relatively small footprint, and it would be a vertical arrangement of services. With regards to White Cliffs, as it has a strong formal presence as well, and that that's fantastic. It has challenges because it was built as a house, and a house is not, unfortunately, a 21st century office building. And so that is something that the report on the building talked about, that it would primarily house a few conference rooms, but would primarily an addition would be needed to house the facility and the office space. And then 11 Pierce is the fire station. The challenge there is that it is a relatively small footprint. There are rec. We're looking at rec. We're concerned about some of the hazmat issues. And then there is no elevator in that building. So according to the drawings that we received, so there is how you get up to the second floor, or what you do with the second floor, becomes something that can be overcome, but it's something that needs to be dealt with. And then the schedule unfortunately got clipped with regards to the dates. But we are right now through the first 3 weeks of the study. And we're starting to queue up the test fits and finalizing the program. We've worked with the executive committee, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback, and we're still scrubbing what we have, but a lot of our questions have been answered. One that is outstanding is the parking requirements. We've reached out to, I talked with Lori in planning today, and she sent me over to the zoning enforcement person, Bob, and I have called and emailed, but haven't gotten a clear number for what will be required. So, there it is. So we're, like I said, we're through the first 3 weeks. We are working on assessing the sites and site planning. We are bringing in our real estate consultant to determine the site disposition estimates. And then we're hoping to start conceptual design in February, moving towards a package for the cost estimator the last week of March, to then talk about at town meeting. So this was a lot of information. Please feel free to ask away, and please feel free to ask to see other slides.
I see Tim has his hand up. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I have 5 things. We've been working with Mark and Anna, and thank you for coming in. I like the question at the beginning in terms of what people wanted to see to kind of provide a democratic service level, if you will. And the membership on this committee kind of spoke to what we had talked about customer service, professionalism, transparency. So those are the kind of the foundations that I think we should build this model around. So I just wanted to say that, and I appreciate the committee's comments, and they kind of echoed that, and we kind of planned that to ask that question to make sure we were in lockstep with what the committee was looking at as well. So far, so good. So my questions relate to bathrooms, and I just want to be clear that the code dictates by square footage how many bathrooms a facility should have. Is that correct?
It is based on the number of occupants, and it's based on square footage and building occupancy.
Okay, but I know we haven't programmed all those spaces, but there's no elaborate bathroom scheme.
Now we're currently carrying a total of 4 2-stall toilet rooms, and that's in the shared space, 1 for each gender. So it's 1 bathroom, 2 sinks, 2 toilets, or a toilet and a urinal for men. And so we're carrying 2 of those currently in the support spaces.
Okay. And then Anna, when she was speaking, and you go through this stuff quick and we cover it, but she said break rooms with an S. I don't think we ever talked about multiple rooms. So I don't want any confusion amongst the community in terms of multiple enjoyable spaces for staff, because there aren't any. And I want you just to confirm that, if you would.
Yeah, I think what I meant was a lunch/break room.
Yes, I know what you meant. I just want everybody not to ask me that question tomorrow. And now I got 2 more. The existing site, and I probably need somebody else from zoning or planning. If I know square footage works, but can we bring the building with an addition to the curb line or out front of the building? You know what I mean? To have the presence at curbside and a welcoming entrance into an area, a welcome center, if you will, and then get to the rest of the building as we program it, if this is the site we choose. So I guess that's a zoning setback question, which we can always ask for a variance for the other community. So but I guess I just want to throw that on, a parking lot list for the committee. And then my final, I want to clear up the cable and the food bank. These are new additions, if you will. I did reach out to the school superintendent. The cable group right now is luckily enough to be housed in the high school. There will be a problem with space going forward in 24 and 25, requiring the cable folks to come back to me. And I would really like them to have the space in the municipal center for a number of reasons: continued transparency, continuous operation, social media presence, which we just don't have from an administrative level, and then economic development. Believe it or not, other communities I've worked in, I've used local cable studios to help promote economic development in a variety of ways, making short videos internally about permitting, for example, and local businesses interviewed and put on cable and aired. You don't need all that detail, but I need them closer to me to do those type of things. And then I don't know if this committee's ever considered it. I'll probably be in a lot of trouble, but we have 4 sites. It was, or is there any consideration, at least to look from a cost standpoint of what it costs us to build new versus renovating any 4 of these sites? And I'll be quiet for the rest of the night.
Okay.
Right.
I think, Tim, to your point, and then, we have a couple hands up already, but to your point about, your last question about, the cost and looking at new, I think we're sort of relying on Icon to help us with that, right? I know a couple of the sites are probably going to need some either new construction or, bolt-on, add-on construction in order to meet what we're looking to do. So, that would be part of the cost estimate, definitely. Linda, I think you had your hand up next, and then we'll go to Kristen.
Yeah, and like, just to add to that point, I don't know if we've ever discussed new construction and whether that is part of the proposal process, a completely new construction. I think that's what, Tim, you're suggesting. Is that right?
For comparison purposes, if nothing else, just so we know new versus remodel costs.
I mean, in the initial proposals from the consultants, that was definitely one of the things discussed.
And we then through the chair, one of the components of the White Cliffs property, 167 Main Street, would be substantial new construction. The White Cliffs reuse study that was done, one of the alternatives for the property reuse was a town hall site, and 90% of the usable space was new construction at that location for the exact reasons that Icon indicated. The existing structure is a residence, and it really doesn't accommodate a municipal service office building environment. So the new construction numbers are rolled into that White Cliffs site alternative.
Yes, I think that that is very true, that we will, as we work through these, we can work with our estimator to get a general square footage number, new cost square footage number. And one of the thoughts that I've had, and I haven't looked as closely at 11 Pierce yet as I'd like, but to see what that can facilitate. It's a great location downtown. It has the opportunity to have that civic presence, and whether or not that could be a second option for demo and new construction. So that's something we'll look at as we start doing these test fits as well.
Okay. Linda, does that answer your question?
Actually, I had a different question. That was just
Okay.
add on.
Go
So
ahead.
my question was, and maybe this is too much in the weeds, but I was curious about the space that was acoustically separated. And I don't know, is the vision for like construction of actual office spaces, or is it more cubes with 3/4 height walls kind of thing?
So the acoustically separated spaces are people that are having private meetings about things that they need to have privacy for. In general, for the admin spaces, we are showing them as either a cubicle or it could be a high wall cubicle. That was something that was raised with the building department of the ability to have a call without having all the background noise. So that's something we are taking into account as we move forward.
Okay. I
Does
just
that
have
answer the
I
question?
just have a comment about those 3/4 height cubes. They might provide separation in terms of keeping background noise away, but I can tell you, you can hear everything anybody says inside of those things. So it doesn't
Right.
keep them separate from people in the surrounding areas.
Right. And that's something we'll take into account as we move forward. But we don't typically provide at the admin level private offices for flexibility and for cost. So and they typically are at the front desk or close to the front desk to deal with the public and to service the public. And so those types of things kind of preclude going with private offices for that staff level.
Private offices are envisioned for the non-staff level, more administrative level. Is that what you're saying?
Above administrative assistant level, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Linda. Great points. Kristen.
Hi, thanks. So Linda was in the weeds and I'm going way back out. Let's zoom way out. So as everyone was talking, it occurred to me that we own all 4 of these buildings, which obviously, yes, we own all 4 of these buildings. But when you were talking about costs, are we as a committee, and I'm not sure who this question is for exactly, but are we as a committee considering these 4 buildings as a puzzle? Like originally I went into this thinking we pick one for which would make the best town hall. And now I'm seeing a whole puzzle. And these are all pieces of it. And also pieces of it are costs. So if we say, don't choose to put town hall in one of the buildings and we choose to sell it, then we can use money from that maybe to pay for renovating or building or whatever on one of the other buildings, or maybe we sell 2 of them. Like, are we as a committee considering all those things? Because I feel like if we just tunnel vision it and say, oh, this makes the best town hall and it's the cheapest way to do it, then we are potentially still stuck with 11 Pierce Street being a weird building that we don't know what to do with, and White Cliffs being a weird building that we don't know what to do with, right? But if we could reuse either one of them or both of them somehow within this design, is that a better vision? Is that a better way to look at this as a problem?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that we should look at this as a puzzle, right? We have 4 pieces in front of us, and given what Icon finds, what pieces make the best answer to the puzzle, right? Is it that we do 4 West Main and we keep the town hall just for rec and for I don't know whatever, right? Or do we convert 11 Pierce Street to a rec center, community center, right? And that's where the rec. I mean, there are as you said, there are a bunch of pieces to this, and so that's sort of, as I see it anyways, and I'll open this up to anyone to answer, but as I see it, that's where we look towards, Icon to help us sort of identify, what makes what's the best bang for our buck, if you will, right?
Yeah, considering where our bucks are, and which pieces of property are the most valuable for possibly other things than a town hall, so that we could just, consider it as a puzzle. Like, is Icon looking at that? I'm figuring Tim is already probably there, since he's the town administrator and he's gonna have to deal with all these things anyways. So, yeah, I just wanted to.
I'm sorry, Chris.
Go ahead,
Yep.
Scott. I'm done.
Anna, can you go back to the schedule slide? I think that might help clarify where we're going. So, Mark, and you can pipe in, obviously, but the site disposition estimates, I think that's exactly what you're hinting toward, Kristen, where they start doing their test fits to see what fits where and what building, in that puzzle arrangement scenario that you described.
Okay.
And in parallel with that is the site disposition estimates. We need to know what these buildings are, what their values are, what their market values are, to determine, is it logical to sell X, Y, and Z to fund 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, those two are parallel paths of analysis that will help vet out what the preferred solution is.
Great. I guess this is one more case where you are teaching me new vocabulary words that I didn't know. So, thank you.
I will say the other thing we have to be careful of is, there may be some legal issues, especially with when you're talking about White Cliffs and the fact that was purchased with CPC money. So, what does that limit us to being able to do as a resale, right? And those type of things as well. So, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just
Judy.
want to quickly
Go ahead.
say to Kristen, we are viewing this very much as a puzzle, especially in hearing from the different departments where they want to be and how they think they would best function, and how they can successfully meet their mission. Those are things that we're taking into account as we're going through this whole process.
Awesome, thank you.
Great question, Kristen. Judy. Judy, you
Okay.
unmute?
Okay. Yep. You can hear me now?
Yes.
So some of my questions have already been answered. One was to Kristen's point, looking at the 4 buildings and how each of them in their own right might address some of the needs. Then another question I was going to ask was, now I do, but I didn't understand what, when you said, Mark, you were going to bring in a real estate consultant to provide site disposition estimates. That is, if it's decided that we're not going to use any one of the buildings, 2 or 3 or 4, presumably the town would sell them. Is that what that means?
Yeah, that's for the committee and leadership to decide.
Mm-hmm.
But we're anticipating, as Scott started to put it, that we're going to have test fits and disposition estimates at the same time, so that leadership and the committee can make decisions on how to go forward. Because at the end of the day, we may develop different plans for different buildings, but we're not going to develop options for all the buildings to a schematic design level. So at some point in February, a decision is going to need to be made to go forward with a preferred option or set of options, and then we'll go forward with our design portion.
Okay, so that leads into another question I had, that at what point are you planning on bringing in a real estate consultant to provide a market value for each of the buildings? Because I would think that, depending on how much money we could sell the buildings for and throw back into, reapplying that towards, the town hall project. You may not have the answer to that yet, but I would think
within the week.
Within the week?
Within a week or two, we'll be bringing them on board
Okay, great. Oh, thank you.
start. Yeah.
And then just kind of a frivolous, more of a comment or just, comment. As the town contemplates purchasing the 23 acres up on Whitney Street and some of the proposals that are being thrown around, might that be something to look at? Or something, if we decide to go the route of new construction? It's not an ideal location, but it's something to throw around.
Definitely something to think about. Yep. Thanks, Judy.
Thank you.
Linda.
I just wondered, and this is again, sort of big picture, how does this work dovetail with the downtown revitalization initiative? I was thinking in particular, some of the proposals for the downtown revitalization included the Pierce Street property. Has there been any, is there any dovetailing of the work or thought or discussion or communication with that group? I don't know who that's a question for.
I do know in watching some of the previous meetings with the Downtown Revitalization Committee that they're actually very interested in what we do and where we go with this. So I think, it's a case of, Lori Connors did make a presentation about, beautifying some of the space around the current fire station as well as on Blake Street. And, but I think we're sort of both waiting for each other to finish, if you will.
Yeah,
So go ahead, Ashley.
Sorry, I can speak to that. I believe I'm supposed to be representing the downtown committee. We don't have control over really making sure that all of those plans come to fruition, but the hope is that once it's determined, as Bill said, which site will be the town offices, and if that is not the Pierce Street site, then with the hiring of a community or economic development coordinator or the creation of an economic development committee, that site can be promoted as a site for downtown business. So it really depends on where the town offices end up. And then the hope is that wherever they are not, we can try to help make those vibrant sites for downtown through the use of a staff person or committee focused on that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Diane.
Thank you. Mark, can you speak to the plans for conference room space? Is he there?
Sorry. Yes, with regards to conference rooms, there's a plan to have 3 of this scale. There was a discussion amongst all, we have in our notes which departments would want to share a conference room with another department, and who needs one nearby. And how often they meet. And so that type of thing is being taken into account. The other things that aren't carried in this that we didn't speak to were a second public meeting room that we're currently carrying. And then also Anna mentioned the select board meeting room. So we've sized that for 30 people plus the dais, and we're currently holding 10 for the dais, the arc of people up there. So that's where we stand on that.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Diane?
Yes. Yep. Yes,
Sure.
and I'm glad you included the meeting room space as well.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Dario.
Yeah, I guess I heard we're gonna at least do test fits, for better choice of words, of all 4 sites. when we do that, are we also gonna do kind of high level estimates? Is that coming from the realtor with respect to the cost of the projects, the different ones?
So there's the two separate numbers, money numbers. One's going to come from a real estate consultant for the value of each property. Our cost estimator is going to work with us to determine build outs at or renovations at different locations. So at the early stages, it will be very high level until we get to a point where we have developed some preferred option to the point of schematic design, and then we'll get a more in-depth estimate for that option.
Yeah, that's good. I think that helps you or us or everyone make that decision with respect to which option makes the most sense, because we can look at the function, we can look at the cost, we can look at potential revenue. If you built phasing, I think is another big deal. If we try to use the existing town hall, that not only adds time, but it adds a lot of cost.
Yes, that's very true.
And if we built a new building connected to White Cliffs, for example, there's no added schedule. You just build it, obviously demo and refurbish whatever we need for White Cliffs. But as you pointed out, there may only be, 20% of the program that would work in White Cliffs due to all the accessibility issues. And that's goes into another question. If we're looking at dollars, if we did White Cliffs as an example, would there be a lot of historical dollars available because we're actually doing that kind of adaptive reuse, and that's a big deal. I think there's a lot more funds available for that versus Pier Street.
Right, and one of the challenges and with doing that is also meeting the requirements of either MHC or NPS or whoever's providing funding. There is a layer of I don't want to. There's an additional layer of design and decision making that is outside of everybody's control. And that's one thing that is a challenge with those types of projects.
And then the last one, we've got these 4 sites. We're going to also benchmark this against a greenfield site, whether it's Whitney Street or some other location, just to get a sense of here's what a building would cost. I'll say, mostly unencumbered, because we don't know what site that is. There could be, something unique on it that would add cost. But if you made just basic assumptions of, normal spread footings, what a normal, we don't have a whole lot of craziness in Northborough. We have a fair amount of wetlands, but that's pretty much everywhere in Massachusetts. But there's not something here that I could see causing an exorbitant cost from, we'll just say, unforeseen conditions or underground. I think that's always a good benchmark, because greenfield often is the cheapest when it comes to phasing and renovations and we just did an adaptive reuse in Wellesley for the Dana Hall School, and it was actually a couple $1 million cheaper to build new. And a lot of people think if I'm reusing this building, it's got to be cheaper. As you know, that's not always the case. So I think if we have a benchmark against new, that will put everything in perspective, because you can then say, is this adaptive reuse worth it compared to, if it's new, it's incumbent upon you, it has to be perfect, because then you have no excuses. But with with a building that's there, sometimes you just say, hey, this is the ceiling height. I can't raise the floor a foot, so this is the best we can do with what's there. Anyway, that benchmark I think is important. I just want to make sure that's happening.
We will be sure to include that. I guess one thing that this is the first we're hearing of the potential Whitney Street property. If anybody could get us info on that, or just a simple address, and that would be appreciated.
It's 435 Whitney Street.
Thank you.
The property was
It's
the
same-
chapter
yeah.
61 that recently came up as a they're now selling the property, so the town has the right of first refusal.
It is on the town line with another
It's
town.
actually,
with
it's
Berlin.
actually 432 Whitney.
I will
sorry,
get him the
432.
address. I'll get him the address.
Thank you, Tim.
And I think, Mark, more importantly, it doesn't have to be that site, just generic greenfield.
Right.
We're looking at other sites that are around, because that may just fundamentally be too far away, which
Right.
in and of itself would disqualify it. It's more to get a benchmark of if it was
Yep.
a new property nearby.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Dario. Aaron.
Thank you. So Mark, Anna, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the slides that you presented, I didn't see any sort of a community space. Is that correct?
So we are currently carrying, Anna, how much are we carrying for the lobby space, lobby entry?
Yes, for that, we're carrying 1,000 square feet.
So we're carrying a generously sized lobby to facilitate that potential community space. That is something that was actually a question that we raised to a lot of the departments, and the feedback that we got was that there really a lot of the civic events that happen in the library and happen in the schools and happen in other spaces, and there really wasn't, from the staff anyways, a big desire to have a community room in this building. However, if this is something the committee wants us to look into, we are we're more than happy to do so. We've worked with some towns that view their town hall as sort of a living room for the town. And so that is something that needs a community space. So
let me just chime in and tell you, I mean, I'm surprised if you talked with the clerk's office that they didn't mention a need for something like this, because there is a discussion, albeit very premature at this point, of potentially removing town elections from the schools where they're currently being held. And if the elections aren't held at the schools, you know, I don't know that we have the space right now to divvy it out amongst other locations. So we may need something like that. I'm not saying that that's a definite, but it's certainly something that ought to be under consideration. Is 1,000 square feet adequate for something like that?
I mean, we would have to get more info on how many voting machines we would be talking about, and just the general setup for that. But that could facilitate, I mean, I'd have to study it to take a look without knowing the square footage of things. It's hard to say.
Well, I guess I'd just say maybe circle back with the clerk's office.
Okay, very well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Aaron. And I also feel like people in town, I mean, people who work in town hall may not have the same perspective because they just have never had that, right? But I like the idea of at least considering it. I love the idea of a community space in town. And sometimes, like when we had the swearing in for the new police chief, and we had to all squeeze into the community space in the library, which is quite small because the senior center community space was not available because of a heating problem or something. And I don't know, it just, that was like the only other space we could squeeze into it, and everybody was really crowded. I just feel like it's definitely something we should look into. We don't have a lot of community space in Northborough because
Okay.
the town hall doesn't have anything.
Right. Right.
I'm gonna add my that I think I do agree with Aaron. I think having a community space, because I know personally from, oh, I need to go to this meeting. I need to see this thing. Where is it? Is it at the high school? Is it at the library? Is it at the senior center? Is it where, having it, I think having a single space makes a lot of sense. I don't
And
know, are
that
there
may
any other
just,
board?
yeah,
Go ahead,
that may just be a matter of making that lobby a couple 100 feet bigger, and then it just hits all the functions.
Right.
Because you'll have the bathrooms there, you have the large corridor, you're gonna have the parking. So, if it just grows a little bit, it seems like everybody could win.
Partitions to create the space. But since we are in the middle of programming and we have you all here, tell me what you would want to see in a community space. The ability to host voting, the ability to what other things would you want this community space to be able to host?
Well, we talked about like an award ceremony or celebrating, what just happened, just a gathering area for town functions. We have Apple Fest, there could be something going on there where, we want to meet indoors versus outdoors. I think that probably, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, the number one use would be flexibility. I think that would be the key, to be able to adapt it to, some party, some get-togethers, some functional use, voting. We got to get COVID shots all over again, so you line up to go through all that rigmarole. Just some space that's big enough to house a decent amount of people. Not the whole town, that and flexible enough. And I think the beauty of the lobby you already did. 30 by 30 or 33 by 33 is a pretty big space. Whatever the dimensions end up being. But I think what's nice about it is you have all the bathrooms and stuff as support, and you may end up with a couple extra because it's a gathering area. But to me, you guys, I think flexibility is the key.
Through the chair, one option that could be considered, if we are looking to move rec off-site and they end up having an open court space, for lack of better terms. One of the needs for that court space would be that it has adequate toilet facilities for off-hours use, which are secured from the remainder of the building, as well as accessibility. That would be a good, viable community space for use for voting, which happens in a cafeteria, or where I live, it happens in the gymnasium. If it's an appropriate flooring surface, it could be beneficial for community meetings, as long as the walls have some soft treatment. It's not too acoustically limiting when it comes to public speaking. So there's an option for a very large square footage use to be put to multiple uses, I guess.
Yep. Okay. Judy, you have your hand up.
I did. Scott almost took the words out of my mouth. I know that as a resident for 21 years, I'll say that what this town does lack is a community center. So, as we look at each of these four buildings, I mean, I know poor Mark and Anna are like, we weren't hired to you're here for town hall feasibility study. I realize that, but we're kind of getting off that track. But we need a place for recreation. Do we do one of these buildings into a community center with some rooms people could rent out for birthday parties or whatnot? So just maybe another committee for that down the road.
Well, I think, Judy, I think that part of our puzzle is I mean, this community space that we're talking about can be part of this puzzle. And it can be something that could potentially be under rec, which is part of our charge. So I don't see us as going way out of the way or way out of left field in including this as part of the study.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Linda.
Yeah, and in that context, I think there was some discussion about meeting rooms and a select board room. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. So again, I mean, in the old days, the select board met publicly before Zoom and that kind of thing, and community members could attend those kind of meetings. And so, you know, would that kind of function also be rolled into this community space? Is this, you know, the select board would meet in this room as well, maybe a larger room.
That's a good point, Linda. I think, yeah, do you have a meeting space where people can sit and watch? Because actually the planning board does that too. And we are starting hybrid meetings, hopefully relatively soon, but some people may still want to come in person.
So our current program, our draft program, we are including seating for 30 residents plus seating for 10 people, either whether it be committee, whether it be select board, seating for 10 to face the 30 that we have. And it would be a room that would have extensive AV and IT connections, and it would tie into a control room for the cable access television as well.
As a
I think my question had to do with, would that necessarily need to be a dedicated space for a select board, or could it be, you know, could that function exist in a larger room that could also accommodate larger community events? It's just a thought.
Yeah, no, that's a very good thought. That is something that the town needs to decide on because it can't. There's when we work with the city of Fitchburg, and I realize that's a city and not a town, but their council chambers are a flexible space for the community, and it is available to be used for others. So it does have the one challenge is that it does have a fixed dais at the front. So
I can tell you as a former select board member from way before COVID that there was maybe 2 meetings out of 3 years where people showed up. So I'm sure if the select board needed to move into a larger space for a controversial meeting, they could, but I don't know that we need to eliminate the current projection for a 40-room seat. You're going to be preaching to a lot of empty chairs, I think, as it is anyway.
100%.
Yeah, I would be concerned as well if we use that, you know, the recreation and the, you know, combine the recreation and the select board. If we wanted to use that for voting, how do you turn off the cameras, right? Because obviously you don't want cameras where people are voting. So I think, you know, having those two separate probably makes sense. But Linda, I think you're on the right track, right? Of trying to think of, you know, how we can combine spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So through the chair, if I can, Mark, Anna,
Yes, sir.
what makes sense in terms of being with this committee next? Would it be a 2-week aim, or do we need sooner?
Before we get to that, I do want to, if the board is done, I do want to open this up for public comment, and then we can figure out our future meeting dates, if that's okay. So I'm going to give the board one last chance. Does anyone else have any last questions that they'd like to ask? Okay. For public comment, dial star 9 on your phone to raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the chair. Part of your phone number will be visible to those viewing the meeting. In Zoom, click raise hand at the bottom of your screen and wait to be recognized by the chair. We'll ask you to identify yourself with your name and your address only. So at this point in time, we'll open this up to the public if the public has any questions that they'd like to ask. Okay, I see, is it Henry? Go ahead and unmute.
I don't see that his hand is raised. Do you?
It was, and then it went down. Maybe he put it back down. No, okay. I saw Lisa put up her hand and then put it back down.
They're just messing with you.
I guess.
No. Maybe they just changed their minds.
One last chance. Okay. So at this point now, we can go on to the next item on the agenda, which is discussion of a future meeting date. So I know we had talked internally of a couple dates, but I'm curious from ICON's point of view, what do you think is the next step, and when do we need to meet again?
So I think that we need to get further with the site assessments and conceptual site planning. That's next up. We need to actually, before even that, we need to finalize the program with both the stakeholders and the executive committee. And then once we have a agreed upon number, we'll use that as the basis of design for all of these options. So that's upcoming. And then with regards to site planning and test fits, I think those are things that we would want to develop a little bit further. So I think that we're probably looking at the week of the 5th or the week of the 12th, or sorry, the week of the 12th as the next get together. And at that point, we'll have more in terms of input from our real estate consultant, and we will have further explored the sites.
Okay. Aaron, you have your hand up.
Yeah. So I think the intention is to try and keep the timeline so that we have something to present at the April town meeting. But I guess I just want to say, I certainly do not want for this to be a rushed process, or for people to feel like they're under the gun and we miss some things. We do have, unless I'm mistaken, town staff, you can correct me, but I think we do have a special meeting in October already on the books, or will be soon, because of the fire station committee. So, my point is simply, if we need more time, then we should take advantage of the fact that somebody's already set up a meeting that we can take advantage of.
Okay. I agree with that for the most part. I guess first things first, I'll ask Tim if he's still on. Is there a meeting on the books for October yet, or is that still in the planning phases?
I'm still planning. I think it'll happen for the fire station, but yeah, I agree. If we're not ready, we might have a presentation for town meeting, but if we're not ready to ask for what the need is because we don't have all the information, we're simply not going to ask. But we will certainly update the community. I think that's appropriate.
Yeah. Dario, before I know you have your hand up, I just have one quick question. One of the things I don't notice in this, and what you're showing here on the screen is a time frame for us to be able to show this to the public before we go to town meeting and get their input. I think we had talked at some point about, being able to do a if you will, an on-site presentation, either, like we talked about before, we don't have a space, but at the library or at the high school for people to come in and, see, talk to the committee and so on. Would that be something that we could add in here? And then if we do, what's ICON's thoughts about potentially pushing this off to an October town meeting?
Our current schedule, we believe, is achievable, very achievable. We would, the other, well, let me go back, Bill, to what you started with. And we typically include in here meeting points. We're meeting with Scott and others every Tuesday. So we do have standing meetings, but we do need to get the public meetings on the books. We do anticipate fully meeting with the public, getting their input, probably twice in that 8-week time frame to get feedback from them and to incorporate it into a final cost estimated SD package. So I don't know, does that answer your questions? It's
Yeah, so
something we do need to add to this, and I'd like to get those on the books tonight if we can.
So you would be looking at something between the February 12th and the March 18th timeframe. Is that correct? Two meetings, you said?
2 meetings, yeah.
So Tim or Diane, is your hand up because of something that we're discussing, or?
I just
No,
want to make a recommendation to the committee in terms of the location. That would be the only thing I would ask you to have it here in this building.
Okay.
At 63 Main Street.
So would we use like the select board room, or?
I would just go to the gym just in case it's
the gym,
a huge turnout, but the gym would be the spot. So we need to secure that because we got to coordinate with recreation for the date.
Right. Okay. Okay. So before we go to the future meeting dates, then I know Dario, you've got your hand up.
Yeah. Can we get a copy of everything that's been presented, or do we have that already?
Yeah, we will. We typically PDF our presentation and then send it out. So,
and I wasn't here at the beginning, and I apologize, but wasn't Ned supposed to be involved in a lot of this, or what happened there?
Ned will be involved. We had an unfortunate double booking of public meetings tonight, and we had to split up.
Okay.
So,
okay. Thanks, Dario. Diane.
Okay, actually, I am been back and forth with Lisa Maselli, wants to make a public comment and is not able, for some reason, it's having some technical difficulties. So
let me click on allow to talk here. I do see her, so.
I told her I see her and we saw her raise her hand quickly, but.
Yeah.
Her hand goes up and pops down almost.
Yeah, she's having
a
some
few times.
problems.
Yeah. Lisa, you there? Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, well, okay. I'm on my iPad. Sorry, it's not working right. But, and I did try. I'm sure Henry tried the same way. One of the questions I wanted to ask, because I know I came in late, but I don't know if it was covered. We had an experience at Town Hall, I don't know, a few months ago, Diane, where we had some people coming through Town Hall with their cell phone and videotaping and antagonizing the staff.
Mm-mm.
And we talked about, I know that they've had training on how to handle it, but in some cases it's safer for the staff to have like a separate area to be working as opposed to being wide open that anybody can walk through. So I was wondering if that was a consideration as well when they're doing the offices.
So yeah, security is front of mind. We have spoken with some of the departments that have requested to be near the front to have some form of direct access to the police department, whether it be a push button call or something along those lines. It is something we are considering as we develop the program and then the plans.
Great, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Lisa. So timeframes. I know February is a little hard. We had discussed in the last meeting about 2 potential meeting dates on 2/7 and 2/21. So for right now, moving forward, I'm going to go under the assumption, Aaron, I agree with what you're saying, but if ICON is telling us that there's no, there's no impediment to them keeping with this timeline, then I would prefer to keep the timeline as is. However, I will say, to ICON, if for some reason anything comes up and we need to push this off, we do have the ability to push it off. So, we do have that second town meeting in October. We can always, say we're just not ready and, we'll punt until October.
Understood.
And I just, look, this isn't my bailiwick, but it just seems to me that in the next 10 to 14 days, there's going to be a lot of information that's going to come down the pike. And having our next meeting and then fitting in 2 public feedback meetings and all the data that's going to be downloaded in all of those meetings, I struggle to conceive that we're going to have a functional presentation for April, but surprise me. What can I say?
No, and like I said, I agree with you, and we'll keep that as a back burner in case we need it, right? We'll keep that sort of in our back pockets, if you will. So, in getting back to this, I know we had talked about, I'm going to try to pull up a calendar here, but it never works on this computer. I don't know why.
Bill, would you like to share a full calendar so that we're not just looking at weeks, or is this good for everybody?
If you could pull up a full calendar, that would be better because for some reason I have trouble pulling it up on this computer in front of me. So you said that, I'll wait to see if we can can anyone pull up a calendar?
I got one.
Thanks, Aaron. Perfect. So we had said that we could get availability. I know, Ashley, you're going to be out the week of the 19th. We had
That's
talked
correct.
about the week of the 12th, and there were many people who were going to be out that week. And then I believe from ICON, you said you wouldn't be ready until the 12th, correct?
We would prefer the 12th. We can report back with preliminary information or preliminary concepts for the 4 sites and the week of the 5th. It would be more preliminary and less definitive, but we could meet the 7th.
No, let's, I want to make sure we get all the right information in front of us. So why don't we do this? We'll have our meeting on the 21st, if that's okay with everyone. And then I'm thinking maybe on the February 28th, Tim, if we could arrange something in the gymnasium to have a public input session.
And the 21st would be Zoom again?
Yeah, the 21st would be Zoom. That would be for us to go over the information that ICON has at that point.
And the 28th would be 6:30?
I think that's a good time unless somebody has some other thoughts.
We do have a conflict with another public meeting that night.
Okay.
And so are Wednesdays a requirement of the committee of any rules or anything?
Not necessarily. There are a couple people on the committee. Myself, I'm on the planning board, which meets the first and third Tuesday. Kristen Wickstead is on the select board, which I believe is the second and fourth Monday.
Yeah, it's Mondays.
Yeah. So Wednesdays are usually easier. However, let me ask you this, is the 27th or the 29th, either side of that Wednesday? Do those work?
Yeah.
So we want to get as many committee members there as we can. So I'm going to ask the committee members, does anyone have a preference over the 27th or the 29th to do a public input session?
This is Dario. I just want to make sure, and no offense, Mark, at all, that Ned is available, because I will say that he was one of the primary reasons we selected ICON.
Yep.
And obviously the other town was more important than we were this time. I hope that's not the case the next time.
That is why I'm asking for either the 27th or the 29th, so that we are not having conflicting public meetings. Because he does, and we all do. You hired our team, and we do work completely as a team, and we want to be involved as a team. So he wants to be here.
I will let the committee know that, every working session meeting we've had, all the email correspondence, Ned has been involved in all of them, not just a face at a meeting, but he's been integrally involved in the communication as well as the process, interacting with the town.
I vote for the 27th.
I don't have a preference. I can do either one.
Me as well.
27th.
I would prefer 27th also.
Me too.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds like we have a quorum for the 27th. So we'll do a 6:30 public input session. And then what do you think? Give a week to ingest everything that we get from that public input session. So then we're looking at March 6th would be our next meeting, or do we do another public input session?
My suggestion would be the next public input session would be the results of this committee's consideration of the first public input session, the advancement of the design, so that the following public presentation would be more inclusive of the results rather than just, tabulation of what people's thoughts were.
Yeah, I mean, I almost want to stop sharing so I can look at that calendar again, but I won't unless we need to. Icon, what March date makes sense based on all the data that's going to come in?
So we will meet on the 27th, and we would we would be able to typically turn something around with incorporating public comments within 2 to 3 weeks. So by the 12th or the 19th.
But in public comments, don't you have other data coming in anyway on those weeks?
Well, yeah, we will have input from our regular meetings with the executive group, and we will have input. We will have input from our engineers, and site disposition should have happened at that point. So we should be rolling with a single option at that point. So am I not answering your question, Aaron?
Well, no, I mean, I almost want to look at the calendar just to make sure that I'm speaking the same language, but from my memory of your calendar, I almost feel like we need to look late March rather than early March, just to make sure that we get the additional data that was projected on your calendar.
Yeah, we 26th, 27th is fine as well. We want to, Anna, can you can you share again? Because I actually, hold on. Can you put up our schedule slide?
Yeah, 1 second.
Thanks.
Yeah, so after the week of the 18th, it seems like we need to do a meeting.
Well, yeah, that would be the week of the 25th would be the last bit of public input we would want to get in so that we can get the cost estimator going at that point. We could extend that to the week of the 25th.
So I'm gonna put this out there. Is so when you make this final, I guess, so what is it you'll be presenting at that point? And are you, because I want to understand if it's something just for the committee or if it's something that, we want to present to the public at that point, or do we?
Yeah, so typically for this at that town meeting, we are or before town meeting, we're presenting final renderings and imagery, floor plans, how the building may look and feel for the town. And we will be integrating public feedback throughout. But if we need to get public feedback in to the final estimate, it would be a bit close at the week of the 25th.
Right. And so would we want to do a meeting with this committee on the 20th and then a public presentation on the 27th, or do we wait on the public presentation until town meeting?
I like the 20 and 27th idea.
Okay. So
Mark,
the
does that work?
20th would be with the committee and the
With the
27th.
committee.
Okay.
Correct. And then the 27th would be a public presentation.
Committee meeting be by Zoom.
Yes. Is everyone
Mark,
okay
those are
with
both,
that?
Mark, those are both Wednesdays,
Right. Yep.
Right.
just
If
to
we
make
need to
sure
push
Ned
it,
is not booked.
yeah, in order to get Ned here, if we need to push it to Thursday, we can probably do that. I know the Tuesdays, both of those Tuesdays, I actually have conflicts.
Okay. The 20th may be a challenge, but the 27th is not.
Okay.
So
So is everyone okay on the committee is okay with March 21st, which is a Thursday?
I can't make that date, but if everybody else can, go ahead.
I would prefer the 19th.
I can't do the 19th. That's a planning board meeting.
I
What do
can
we-
do either. I'm fine.
What do we, on the 20th that Ned's not going to be there?
Correct.
the 20th, we would have a conflict. Potentially, it may be that Ned's here and I'm with the other client.
Well, maybe we cross that bridge down the road then. I mean, we've got some time to clear up that.
Okay, but are we in agreement that at least, we'll meet at some point in time that week?
That
And
week.
then the 27th, we do the public presentation.
Yes.
Mhm.
We'll
I
just
just-
leave the meeting open for that week.
Yeah. So what I have is February 21st would be a Zoom with this group. February 27th is in person at the gym. March 6th is with this group. The 20th is with this group, and the 27th is in person at the gym. Is that correct?
That would be correct. I know, Tim, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is my first town meeting in this community. Some communities, their warrant, you're giving notice through the warrant process. The board will be signing the warrant on the 25th of March. So we'll have general language. I don't know how specific warrant articles are in Northborough. Usually the motions are the most detailed piece right before you get to April, which get worked out through various committees. But long and short of it, the 25th is when the board will actually sign the warrant. So we need that placeholder with enough information to make people comfortable that we're giving notice relative to what we're going to be asking town meeting for. So the 27th is fine because it'll still be in development, but I just wanted to let the committee know the 25th is the date the board will sign the warrant.
Right, and that's why I wanted to make sure that we did the 18th, the week of the 18th for this committee, right? That would really be okay, this is the one we're choosing. Would be that meeting. So it might even be the 18th. I don't know if anyone has conflicts with that, but that's the intent of that meeting. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just quickly, I know we're talking about having the public input sessions in the gymnasium at Town Hall. The gymnasium is not really outfitted well for one, acoustics, and two, AV presentation. As the acoustics may be a real challenge when it comes to cable access TV in the gymnasium. Would the committee be willing to have the meeting conducted maybe at the big room in the library or at the senior center where the new screen was put in the large dining area?
Mhm.
You mean Algonquin Library?
No, I'm talking about our library where the police chief was sworn in. We've done the fire station feasibility meetings there and design meetings there. It's a little more conducive to public presentations acoustically, as well as with the screens that are available for AV and cable access. is acclimated with using those spaces. I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe
I think that's a good idea. I was gonna suggest something other than the gym too, and also I don't think that many people will come. That it
you
would.
may not get the result visually that you want in the gymnasium. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, the only reason why I brought the gym up is because this is the very problem we're trying to solve. So if people can come in here and see the space and understand it and tour this space and all the bad things Scott just said, that's why the space needs to be done. So if they can see it firsthand, that was my only thought. If you think it's people don't care what it looks like, they just want to move forward with a better space, that wouldn't be my takeaway as an average voting citizen. I want to see what I'm going to fix. So that's why I brought it up. But I yield. You guys have been here a lot longer than me, but that was my thought, and I could be all wet with that.
I think, yeah,
we
that's
could do both. We could have
that's really smart too. What about the select board meeting room with the if that's set up for hybrid? And I know that was the original like idea, like that's too small, but maybe if it's too small and people are sort of crowded in there, that makes a point. And to Tim's point, and also I think there's a decent chance that not that many people would come. I mean, maybe the people who would be likely to show up at this event are the kind of people who spend time at the town hall anyway, but on the off chance that they haven't really spent time there, maybe it's good for them to see some rooms.
It's a rebroadcast.
I think that's a great idea.
Through the chair, it's the rebroadcast benefit for the 10 days leading up to town meeting. So at least people can see how it is. Let them get a view. Cable can walk through for their initial presentation saying this meeting's going to happen. And people can get a feel for it anyways, if they're interested.
Well, maybe, Tim's approach is good, and it provides them a good feel for town hall at the public input session, and then which is on February 27th. And then when we do the in-person one, March 27th, maybe that's in a more acoustically viable space where the presentation can present the information clearly and accurately.
Yeah, I was just going down that same line, Scott. I think that's probably the better idea. I think, that sort of solves both problems. So yeah, I think using the select board room, if it's available, for the 27th, February 27th. And then, for the presentation, like Scott said, using a bigger room that's better acoustics for the cable access.
Right.
So what did we end up on? I missed it.
So let's see, we've got the 21st, which is Zoom. That's just the committee. That's February 21st at 6:30. February 27th at 6:30 will be a public input session that'll be held in the select board room. It'll give people the opportunity to be able to look around town hall, see what we're trying to improve upon. And then we'll discuss, maybe we can have an informal discussion, or we can discuss it on the 21st when the March meeting will be, but it'll definitely be the week of the 18th, the week of March 18th, and that'll be Zoom. That'll be just the committee. And then on the, did we say March 27th?
27th, yes.
27th would be the public presentation of the, basically what we're going to be bringing to town meeting. To be determined.
That should probably be at a place that has good acoustics and good
right
audio visual.
So that might be at the senior center, it might be at the library, it might be at the Algonquin Library. I know I've done a couple things there, so one of those type of locations.
Where did we meet? There was a meeting, a public meeting when the master plan was rolled out. What? does
That was, I
anybody
think,
know?
at the Algonquin High School library.
Okay, okay. That worked out well.
Yeah. So do those dates work for everybody? Does anyone have conflicts with any of those? Sean, I see your hand up. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I missed it. Was there a March 6th meeting too that we had mentioned, or did I
No, we
make
had
that
talked
up?
about it, but I think we're going to give ICON a few weeks to ingest everything they get from the public input session.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And so according to the schedule we have now, we should be able to meet town meeting. If for any reason something gets pushed off, we get a lot of input from the input session, which I would love to get, right? That's a problem we want to have. And if we have that problem, then we can, then we can push off the schedule to accommodate a October town meeting. Does that work for everybody?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. And I thank ICON for coming in and making their presentation.
Thank you.
Roll call vote. Judy?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye, thank you.
Kristen?
Bye.
Dario?
Aye.
Is Ashley still here or did she drop?
I think she had to go.
Okay. And I'm an aye. So thank you, everyone.